everyone. I am Oracle Oriah, and this is Alastair. He's from the UK. I'm from the US, and this is Cosmic Coffee. And we come to you every week bringing you the most adventurous, spiritual, metaphysical, psychological, psychedelic conversations and topics, things that people are not talking about, and some people are talking about regularly, and we try to unravel it all. And today's topic is very, very interesting. This topic is near and dear to Alastair's heart, and so I wanted to give him the opportunity to showcase it here today, this episode. And we will be talking about James Oroc, who is a psychedelic author and also happened to be a Burning Man, art card designer and everything. And he's just been a big influence in the psychedelic community. Recently, he had a death, unfortunately, and he was paragliding in the desert and he went missing, and people are still looking for him. There's a GoFundMe page, and Alastair has a lot of thoughts and curiosities about the entire situation and who he was as a person. So Alastair, I am going to let you take the forum. Where would you like to start? Would you like to talk about... Okay, that's where we're going to start. So walk us through.
Just for our viewers at home, maybe we do that as the screenshot. Yeah, it's very interesting. James Oroc has been a massive pillar in my journey in terms of his literature. And I logged into Instagram the other day. I follow loads of different artists on there, and I saw Alison Gray's Instagram said that he'd gone missing, and had a look, and it said he was paragliding in the Nevada desert on the 22nd of August, and they lost contact with him. They found his GPS device, but they haven't found his paraglider. They haven't found him, and I know what it's been like over there recently, so it's, let's not say it, but it's a very high probability that he has transitioned over. And I just thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about some of his work and its influence today, really, because his book, the first one I got was this one, The New Psychedelic Revolution, but I'm going to start with Triptamine Palace, because this one is, I recommend it for everyone's bookshelf. James Oroc basically is the ambassador for the toad. The toad meaning the Sonoran desert toad, the Bufo alvarus toad, that you can massage it so it spits its venom and it crystallizes and dries into 5-MeO-DMT, which is a substance that we produce naturally. So if you want to get into it, read things like Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks through about how to actually kind of release that naturally in the body. But in terms of James Oroc, it was interesting that it was on his 36th birthday that he first tried 5-MeO-DMT. I'm like 2.5 weeks away from my 36th birthday right now, so he was a staunch atheist. Anything, the term spiritual or anything like that really switched him off, beforehand. But then it was like this one experience completely flipped him around to believing in some kind of knowledge of the other, and there is something beyond all of this. And Triptamine Palace is fascinating because he compares it with the 0-point energy field, the 5-MeO-DMT experience, Indian philosophy, the legacy of Timothy Leary, quantum physics, different Eastern philosophies, and all this kind of stuff. And then also there's kind of an appendix that different sort of facts and in-depth answers to questions regarding tryptamine, specifically 5-MeO-DMT. And I think it was incredibly important because he's kind of triangulating something here that's quite interesting, because when we talk about a tryptamine experience, DMT, the ayahuasca, so DMT is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, Ayahuasca takes you on the journey over however many hours. DMT kind of puts you straight in there. 5-MeO DMT shoots your consciousness out of a cannon straight through to the other side. And he was really the only one kind of publicly going into this on this level of depth and comparative study. And it was interesting because I read his second book first. He was referencing Triptamine Palace and the speaking tours that he'd been doing and visiting all these different festivals and these events and talking about 5-MeO DMT and psychedelics and their place in modern society and culture and this kind of thing. And interestingly, his view was not necessarily one of taking psychedelics to sort out psychological problems. He was kind of anti that. It was kind of more like, if you're healthy, you're grounded, you're balanced and all this kind of stuff, you can go into that realm. Whereas a lot of psychedelic literature and conversation that's happening now is using them as alternative treatment modalities instead of SSRIs, talking therapies and all this kind of stuff, usually to do with addiction or trauma therapy, which is how I ended up. Because obviously, I'm an educator, I'm a coach, I'm all these kind of things that were supposed to be sensible. But because I had this experience as part of a medical research trial, I feel I can talk about it openly without any kind of fear of discrimination. And James's books really kind of turned a corner, helped me figure things out, essentially. Before we got into the galactic conversations of 2020, this was all kind of, that was all kind of murmuring in the background anyway. But the idea that there is a way that we can experience the all-permeating energy field by smoking toad venom, but done in such a way that's in the great tradition of psychedelic literature. Think about how mescaline influenced Jean-Paul Sartre or Aldous Huxley, these people. So Alex Gray kind of heralded James Oroc as the modern sort of psychedelic philosopher, really. And it's just a bloody shame because I'm interested in what he has to say, and 2 books isn't enough, man. Do you know what I mean?
So the first book, can you hold it up? I'm trying to see the Triptamine Palace. So what is that his personal journey, his personal story as he consumes and what he saw?
That's it. It's kind of what happened and then basically the aftermath. And he got kind of, this used to be legal, bear in mind. You could just order this stuff off the internet in the early 2000s by the bucket load. Joe Rogan particularly is an advocate for DMT. DMT and 5-MeO DMT are 2 completely different compounds as well. So he wanted to try and make sense of it in a rational, reductive context so other people could come across this book in particular and learn about what that experience is. And it's really describing a mystical experience because he then went right into it for I think about a year. He was just taking this quite a lot and recording the experiences, and there was one quite profound experience that he had where there was a friend of his who passed away some time before, and then one of the experiences when he'd taken this and he was in this realm, so to speak, in the Triptamine Palace, he was walking with this friend and there was this great sense of peace and, as if like it was allowing you access to behind the veil, which to me is the interesting thing about stuff like DMT and the tryptamines, because all of the reported experiences are within a spectrum. It's not like you have psilocybin and then you can have any kind of experience with psilocybin, really. It's really down to the individual, the setting and what you want to go with it. With the tryptamine experience, it does seem to be very much within that spectrum, the fractal geometry, the entities, the realm of consciousness, this kind of stuff. So this is a fascinating book for anyone interested in that, because he's talking about like Vedic philosophy and various different physics idea, quantum physics, particularly different ideas from that field of science. So it's not like we just got really high and this happened. It's actually like, no, let's try and triangulate this between science, experience, myth, religion, all of these different things, and trying to find the center point.
When in my psilocybin experiences, I have, and on high dosages, have experienced what you mentioned in the sacred geometry, the conscious level where you're seeing things very metaphysically. And one day I did an experiment where I had a glass of water. It was just a glass. And I was on a glass coffee table. And I started having a conversation with the molecular structure of the glass and the glass table. And I asked it, why is it not separate? I mean, why is it separate? Why can't I fuse the glass and move it through? And it was all based on my intentionality and my perspective. So I took my hand over the glass like this, and I just held it over the table, and I slowly started to push it, and I pushed it all the way through. And that was one of my biggest, I've had so many interesting experiences like that, but that was one of my biggest 3D experience that I was journeying, and I was able to do that. So that was fast. I mean, I have a lot of stories like that, but that was really fascinating. But anyway, so going back, yeah, frog medicine is really big out here in LA and US. I don't know about other states, but I definitely know LA. It's in Mexico. It's really big.
It's the stammer. Oh, sorry there. The toad appears in such so many of the Mesoamerican artworks
Right.
as well, and it's interesting that if we kind of bring Terence McKenna into this, and we mentioned psilocybin, I guess the door is opening, and off we go with our coffee
Off
cups.
we go.
My nameless carbonated drink by a company that is not sponsoring us. The place of the mushroom in ancient tradition as well, the place of the toad in ancient tradition. What was it? What civilization was it that they consumed soma? One of the old ones. I can't remember which one it
Marion,
was.
maybe? I'm not sure entirely.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was in Sumer. I think it might have been more towards the Indian continent general area.
Oh, sounds about right.
Plant medicine has only really been out of the game for the past few hundred years, just because of the church and that kind of ideology. And don't ask too many questions. Stay in your lane, all of this kind of stuff. You can't develop your own.
Yeah, if you do history, if you research history to ancient human civilization, the beginning of human civilization, sorry, can't talk today. If you go back to ancient civilization, you'll see that the shamans were taking plant medicine as they wanted to get to know the plants that were around them and what their meanings were, what the herbs were used for, and to have deeper connection to the planet. I mean, it goes back to the earliest man.
That's it. So why is it we've become so separated? Other than just to support an agenda of shuttered thinking.
I think it's to support an agenda. I think there's no way I could say otherwise, because that's the only reason why they're trying to control our minds, and in that way it's just they don't want us to have this technology, and they don't want us to be this free, and just add that to the list.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that we both live in the US and the UK, and particularly at the moment there's such a great shift in our cultures, and there's people who want to run clinging to the past, there's people who want to go towards an integrative future, and then there's us kind of hanging out waiting for them all to kind of chill out so we can have a conversation. It's a fascinating time to be alive, really.
Wow, that's a really great way of saying it. It's true. Waiting to chill out so we can have a conversation. Wow, that's the most accurate way to really say it, because that's what we're doing. We're finally talking. We're discussing things like this, you know, like we're going deeper. It's not just the talking heads and shock jocks and all the people that are trying to like be shocking. And you know, these are real conversations everyone around the world is having. It's now becoming more public, so it's a good time to talk about these things.
Well, this is it. Do you know what we had come down the news today? That gatherings of over 6 people are now banned in the UK.
Oh, perfect. Right before the holidays. That's going to be fun.
And well, hey, you saw this when we were talking about visions and stuff a while ago.
So what happens if you're a mother and father and you have 6 kids?
I don't know.
Separate the family?
What happens if you... Well, what I don't understand is they've banned people meeting up in public, people meeting up in private in groups of over 6, yet the schools are still open and the schools are reporting loads of infections or whatever. I'm just going off the vernacular from the media. I'm not going to...
We have the same thing going on here. Yeah.
The offices as well. One of the ministers said at the start of the week that the home working is damaging the economy. It's not. It's just damaging their favoured economic model. And what's going to happen? They're saying that these restrictions could be in place till the spring. What's going to happen really to people's sense of sanity in all of this? I don't really know.
I think there's 2 factions. There's the people that are going to break through. What that means is it just means they're going to stop caring. They're just going to stop caring about everything because it's just all too much. And especially this group of people already feel inundated and already full with their own lives prior to COVID. They were already stretched thin, trying to just manage life and have their just existence work for them. Those people, now you add this to it and then all the chaos that's involved, and then they just snap. You just give up. And a lot of those people, they're like surfers, you just jump on the waves and you just start riding the waves. Yeah. Whatever happens, you just ride the waves. And then the second group of people are the rigid people, the stuck in the tradition people, and they just are they're just not willing to see what's happening and willing to see what could happen, and they are not willing to see that life could be different. And what happens is they're having nervous breakdowns, they're having heart attacks, they're getting sick, they are committing suicide. And then you add violence to that because everyone is very aggro out here, by the way. I have a lot of stories about that. I'll tell you a couple really fast. So I live on this
I'm happy to go there if you want to
just
go
for
there,
a second.
I'm happy to go there.
Yeah, I'm fine if you are. I'll go back to wherever you want. So I have this major thoroughfare.
We just chat about everything. So
yeah, why not? There's a major thoroughfare in front of our house, and normally it's peaceful and whatever amount of cars, normal amount. But since the lockdown and since everyone's at the beach, what's going on is we have a lot of people from out of town. So we are having about 4 accidents a day, all over, stretched out. People are doing the craziest maneuvers. We are having the intensity. There's an intensity people have that they're going to have fun no matter what. And they're so tired of being locked down. So they come out with this attitude, and there's so much tension. And then you go into the stores and it's so depressing because you're wearing masks. You don't want to, everything's changed when you shop, and it's you just get people are so agitated, and then everyone's staring at each other. Everyone's looking in each other's eyes to see who's going to be bad, who's going to do something wrong, who's going to be making a mistake. And it's like we're in school again. like this is a giant school, like we're all just watching our backs. And then by the time you get to the car and just come home or just get out of there, you're just so tired, you're miserable, you didn't like the mask on you the whole time, you don't know how long this is going to last and how long everything's changed. You can't even dress up and look pretty when you go out, or dress up and look nice as a guy. You have to put this mask on. You can't even be cool. There's no cool anymore, you know. Who can look cool with a mask? So, you know, so you have all this like agitation under the surface for people. And I just see the holidays coming as schools opened out here. My prediction was there was going to be a huge COVID outbreak everywhere in the schools, and they were going to have to shut them down again, which is exactly what happened, especially in the major universities. And whether that was conspiracy planted tests, false testing just for political reasons, or it was legit, we'll never know. But the people who are on the front lines do say these are real. A lot of times you're hearing these numbers are inaccurate because they're not actually COVID deaths, they're COVID related deaths, or they're maybe a secondary issue. So you're seeing people getting very apprehensive about the holidays. So I went into the store the other day and there was Halloween decorations and there's nobody in there. Like nobody cares. Everybody's like, so I wrote a post. I asked, is anybody celebrating Halloween? Some people are, which, bravo to them that they have it in them. My husband's one of those people. I just don't know like where that comes from. I personally can't find it within myself. I can't do it. I have tried to find the place that can celebrate Halloween. I can't even fathom it. Just like buying the paraphernalia, getting the pumpkin, doing the whole thing. It's like almost false. It feels fake to me. Like I'm pretending something's not happening. I don't know. It just feels very awkward. So then I figure if Halloween is going to go like that, and then now we have limitations on groups. So then we have Thanksgiving. So how's that going to go? And then we have the holidays, Christmas and Kwanzaa and everything else. People are just at their wits' end completely. And it's good for visionaries. I think this is a great platform for people like you and I. Yeah. So we can come out and say, hey, hello, there's a lot of stuff going on out here. We can have fun. We can make something happen. Now we can really move things along. It's not as rigid. Things are breaking and moving along. But I don't think it's good for for the people who were very comfortable in the status quo, keeping the rigid structures together. I don't think that this feels good to them. No. I mean, it doesn't feel good in general if you look at it from the discomfort. But if you look at it from opportunity to just be out there in the world and speak and all this is a time for that. You can do that now. You can have more of a voice. I mean, that's my opinion. Some people think we still don't have a voice, but it just depends on what, I guess, you're protesting. I don't know how it is in the UK. You guys protest all the time, so.
I mean, it's interesting because I see so many conversations of people who are just railing against all of this. And these are people who would like, let's rewind 12 months and they're sharing like, yes, you must be at peace with yourself and the universe. And then now it's like putting cloth over your face means that you're subjugated to Satan or some bullshit.
Oh my gosh.
It's interesting because there's, you've got this whole massive cult growing around in the light worker community of QAnon, so that's a cancer really, because there's, like we said a while ago before, there's some legitimate questions that they've just attached themselves onto, like the elite child trafficking and stuff, which and then it comes through the whole other stuff. And
have you noticed a lot of cliques, little groups? Like we have to ask each other now, which group do you believe in? Which group are you in now? It's like the nuances.
It's ridiculous. I'm kind of really leaning into the Han Solo thing, and as people ask me what do I believe in, I believe in this.
Yeah.
you know.
Keep it fresh.
But we're
Keep it
but we're
open.
seeing a lot of that in the UK, particularly in the spiritual community. They are losing their minds, you know, in my humble opinion. Um, but then that's people are really trying hard to find a way to make sense of the senseless, and you can't make sense of the senseless at all. So they're leaning into these insane ideas, which is just basically a real hyper partisan right wing. The boot's going to be further up your backside than it ever has been. When you're welcoming it, you're even greasing your own bum for it to go up there. You know, it, it's a very bizarre situation because these are otherwise rational people, and then you try and say, "Do you not think that?" And then they're like, "Oh yeah, but this, but that," and
Right.
then you just kind of
The butt
modify
chain.
your.
It's just a chain of
That's
butts.
it. Yeah, exactly. All of them just poking up out of the ground, just getting plugged with their own constitution of bullshit. Sorry, I'm a bit
I got
fiery
such a
there.
visual. Yes. It's true. You can't really get through to people who are not interested in hearing outside of that where they're at. You almost have to just let them go. You know, just let them just run its course,
Yeah,
exhaust themselves.
that's it. Because you know what happens on the other side of this when all of this doesn't come true, and they don't have whatever the hell it is they're. I mean, I'm loath to repeat some of it. You know, I've checked it out for my own curiosity, but I don't want it to come out of my mouth. You know,
Well, I will
when all
say
of that.
anyone who's channeling quote unquote predictions of dates, anything with dates, uh, I have a hard time with that. I mean, I can understand patterns, I can understand
Yeah,
trends, I can understand cause and effect, I can understand paying attention to the algorithms, but saying a date like December 19th, this is going to happen, I have a hard time with that. Um,
yeah, it's not on, is it? Really, if you're saying this, because you know the big one again. Here we are. They're saying 21st of December this year. Blah blah blah. Apparently, like the world's going to split in two, and you
right.
know some crap. I don't know what.
Was this because of the orbit wobble, the wobble? I think I heard this one. I don't know.
It's probably because of about 20 different things, depending on who you're speaking to. You know.
Well, see, that's the thing. Can anyone keep up anymore of like all the millions of new stories, conspiracies, news, what's happening to the planet? Like, it's almost, I mean, how can any human, it was bad enough before. Like, how can people keep up with this news outlets? Can I just ask you, I have such a new perspective, and I always was skeptical of media outlets and news outlets, like your major news outlets. But now more than ever, has it occurred to you, because this is how it is here, and maybe it's because it's LA, it could be, but everyone looks like they're on some kind of Comedy Central. It's like some kind of comedy show. It's not even real. This
Yeah.
is not even a newscast. This is supposed to be serious news. I mean, it looks like a bunch of just comedians all just, you know, hamming it up, trying to get attention and kind of pin one thing against another. And I don't know, is that happening to your newscasters? I've
It's
mentioned this before. I'm fascinated with this topic.
it has become farce, but I think it's become farce because we have chosen over a number of years and a number of decisions made. We're now living in the summation of those. We've opted out. We've withdrawn our money from the bank. We're not invested in it anymore. So then when we see it, it's like, what the hell are you on about? You know, this is complete nonsense. I used to have on my internet browser when I first log in, open it up. There's like a panel with like on Safari, you have like these are your favorite sites, and three of them were news sites. There was like the Guardian, the Independent, and then the BBC. This was like back in 2011 or something. Then over time it changed. Then I'd have things like the Byline Times, What else did I read? Novara Media, these kind of like left-leaning things. Sorry, Americans, it's fine to be a bit socially focused. I'm not going to come and take your money. Don't worry, it's okay. I just think we shouldn't have to pay for hospitals or education.
I agree.
Fight me.
Yeah.
Fight me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not going to change my mind on that.
Exactly.
Just to, sorry, backpedal. Over time, the news channels would go until recently. I just got rid of them all because I felt that, like, there's a great picture of Frank Zappa where he's in his house and then he's got this mezzanine floor in his living room that upstairs is a toilet and a pipe running down from the toilet into the back of a television. And this is from like 1969 or something.
Wow.
And I felt
Brilliant.
that I had allowed my laptop to be the thing that was crapping in my head,
I'm so glad you're saying this, I've been preaching this for so many years and people just didn't listen to me about the news, but more than ever now, I think what's going to happen is people are going to start, like my mom is a perfect example. She's in her early 80s and she was dedicated to news outlets and diehard. And I tried to get her off of it and she just refused because she's from that generation. But recently, if she's getting this at her stage, she's going, wait, this doesn't connect with this. And why are they saying that? And she's starting to see that this is not even news anymore.
Yeah.
To her, it's not even news, except for just the constant onslaught of violence and what's happening politically. But I think she's starting to realize it's not worth it. So she's turning it off. And I think more and more people, there should be a campaign to turn off the news, honestly, because they won't have power if no one's watching.
Did you see what happened in the UK on Saturday?
No, what happened?
The protest group Extinction Rebellion, who I have zero time for because it's basically just a bunch of middle-class privileged white people. True. They did something kind of interesting in that they blockaded one of Rupert Murdoch's newspaper printing distribution centres. So on Saturday there was the Telegraph, the Times, and the Sun, or something. Three of these quite right-wing, inflammatory newspapers. Was it Daily Mail? I think that's the worst.
Yeah.
They weren't able to be shipped. They just didn't.
Good.
Happen. And then on Monday, the Home Secretary's saying we're going to reclassify them as an organised crime organisation, and I'm like, whoa, this is
wow, that's interesting.
And
freedoms.
It's daft because as much as I disagree with the organisation, I don't deny the challenges that they are trying to raise awareness for. But the problem that they have, being non-hierarchical, is they just say, well, everyone does what they want. It's like, yeah, but it's all under the one banner, and really you kind of have to take responsibility for each other. So it's very interesting in that now, like you're saying with the news, the government seem to be more bothered about the people that have donated to them than the population, but
right.
Not like in a way that you would say to your mate, like, yeah, look at this, they should wear their sponsors on their suit like racing drivers. Actually, like in an open way, saying, like that thing about the economy being harmed when really it's the people who own however many tens of thousands of branches of the same coffee shop, that have donated to the Conservative Party that are losing money through trade. It's crap like this that it's no longer the domain of like kind of fringe internet conversation. That's, there's something happening, there's a shift, and people are starting to say this isn't cool anymore.
See, I find that good news. I love people saying, wait, what's going on? And then actually deciding if something works for them or not, shutting the news off, shutting things off, whatever, just lifestyle changes. The people that are doing that, I feel like are the ones that are going to make it. I'm not a part of that idea of the arc, and you better get on, because if you don't get on, you know, that's so extreme. I mean, it's just really symbolic. I mean, sometimes I feel like we talk like we're in ancient times, you know, because that's how they did their hieroglyphs, is through symbology. So I feel like sometimes that's how we talk. So when we say, if you don't get on the ark, you know, the window of the light workers and the 144,000 and all that stuff, you know, I'm just like, what's the symbology here? What are you saying? Are you saying pay attention, look around, make decisions? That window is going to stay open forever, because everyone's going to be waking up and waking up and waking up. I mean, it's catching on like wildfire. People are really starting to see. They don't have to be convinced anymore. You could just turn on the news. You could just watch. You could compare notes. You can see, like, who are you paying attention to? Who are you listening to? Who are these branches of government that you hold in such high esteem, and why?
It's like anyone who's buying into a narrative that puts one political figure is going to somehow save. Newsflash.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, they all work together. So.
Yeah. It's like we were saying about Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be rivals, but everyone buys tickets to the same match.
Yeah.
WWE makes money regardless.
That's right. And also they hang out in the locker room and they compare notes on what is the play going to be like. And they set up their, you know, their matches, and they know who's the winner and the loser, for those of you who don't know that yet. And that was a big shocker for us when we were kids, because we didn't want to know that. But that was the reality. And Hulk Hogan talks about it, you know. He says that he planned things out all the time. And everybody knew that what type of move they were going to make next. And
well, that's it. They say that, you know, they have the, what do they call them? The face and the heel. So Hogan was the face, Macho Man was the heel. You know, so you look at the, you know, binary political systems. Who's the face? Who's the heel? Who are you cheering for? Who are you cheering against?
Do you remember the incident when Andre the Giant flipped over to the villainous side and came after Hulk Hogan?
I don't remember that, no.
This is when they switched. Well, they were trying. Andre had several back injuries and surgeries, and he was in a lot of pain, and he needed to find a way to get out because he was so popular. So he turned on Hulk Hogan, and it's this famous altercation interview that you can watch. And when we were kids watching, we all were crying, because they're supposed to be friends working together, and they turned against each other, and Hulk Hogan was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then the Giant was just like, "I'm sick of this man. I'm sick of you." And it was the saddest thing in the world. And in the documentary, I've watched both documentaries. Andre the Giant, if you watch that documentary, you'll cry. It's the most beautiful documentary, the most beautiful soul. My heart broke in half watching it. And Hulk Hogan is very well spoken. He's actually not this maniacal, loud, insane person. He just does that for show. He's like a philosopher. If you listen to the way he speaks, he knows exactly why he does what he does and the role he plays for people. But he had planned this out with Andre to exit him out, and he had to play that villainous role and have, I think, one last match. And that's how the audience turned on him, and then he was able to find a way out. I think I'm telling this very correctly. My husband might correct me, but I think that's what happened. I think I'm close.
But this is the point, isn't it? It's the same. You still tune in, or you show up to the arena and pay your money to the WWF. Doesn't matter, you know. So you've got all these people being like, "You don't know the truth. You're not awake. How dare you?" And it's literally like,
yeah,
you know,
you're still in the hole, interesting man. When people say that to people who are very calm. So we're calm because we do know the truth. And then there's people who are angry because they know the truth. And then the angry people who know the truth are mad at the calm people who know the truth because we're supposed to be angry. And then they bring in white privilege. And then we're not allowed to have a voice. So by the way, you and I are not supposed to be speaking. We can't have a voice right now.
Do you know what I got? There was one guy in the UK who was actually like, "Do you know, maybe we should start putting music behind these little
I
segments and
thought
stuff."
the same thing.
There was one guy in the UK who used to run the youth club when we were all growing up, and he was, he was a cool dude. Then, when the conversations around systemic and structural racism started happening, because I'm half Iranian and my skin is a slightly different color and I look a bit different, he then said to me, "Don't you start playing the race card." And I was like, dude, that's the worst thing you can say, because this is the other thing as well. Like we're talking about in the UK and the US, they're not going to revise the schooling system to discuss where the ancestral wealth came from, to discuss a non-biased point of view of history. We're not making anyone wrong, It's not wrong to know why certain families
Yes.
have their financial influence. It's not
Yes.
wrong to know the decisions of policy, the decisions of why we went to war at different times,
Right.
who built the buildings, who built the monuments, who picked the flipping crops that all went back into someone's pocket. People need to know this stuff.
That's right.
But somehow racism has become so ingrained in our respective cultures that if you protest racism, you're somehow protesting the country. And it's like,
right,
that is not what is happening at all. It's about trying to get everyone into the same room so we can have the conversation.
I know. It is so complicated. It's so much anger and everyone is so frustrated and there's not seeming to be any progress, or at least fast enough. And out here in the US, there's a lot of racist police brutality, things like that happening. And it's happening more and more. It's like almost a trend or some weird thing. I don't know why the police officers are not like getting the memo. This is probably not a good thing to do. It's such a complicated area, it's so complicated because if there is somebody with a gun, officers are instructed to kill you. If you have a gun and they're trying to get you under control and you're going to turn that gun on them, they're going to take you out. So now it's always about, did he have a gun? So one guy did have a gun, but he threw it on the floor and he's running away and they shoot him anyway. Oh my God. So complicated, right? And so trying to understand how to stop killing, finding other ways, communicating, getting in a room, like you said, and communicating. But yeah, the racial topic is isn't it ironic in the middle of everything that's happening, that topic is coming up? Don't you find that super interesting?
I think it's an issue so polarizing that it is the one thing that has the potential to unite us all if we actually just turn our release valve down and see what people are trying to say. People are just trying to say, my life has as much value as yours. I do not have the same opportunities as you because the system is constructed in such a way that we are taught to have ingrained biases, which is in fact just watered down prejudice, and we want to change that. Not you are wrong, fuck you. That's not the thing,
There's no room for improvement. You can't progress if you're shooting people down who are trying to come out of one station of life, like an understanding, into another, and they get shot down before you even get a chance. That's one of the things about white privilege that I'm trying to understand, because from what I'm learning about it, and I've been studying it, is that the second I say anything that is not in line with white privilege, I'm white privilege. So so I have to watch every word I say. And then I already know in this episode alone, I've said about 120 things wrong. Definitely.
But it's okay because I'm like the minority ethnic, so I'm giving it my stamp of approval, so you don't have to worry.
So then that should be okay, right? But yeah.
You haven't said anything wrong at
Well,
any
there's
point.
some groups that would think so. They
Well,
would
then they need to
say,
chill out.
you should be angry. Babies are dying.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tragedy. It's
Yeah.
horrible. All of the things that are going on in the world that are shit, don't they? It's not like they don't make me angry. It's not like they don't break my heart. It's that if I spend all of my time focusing my energy on experiencing the pain, I don't. It's like trying to take off in a hot air balloon and you've got your sandbags still in the basket. You have to let some of the sandbags out. You can take a couple up with you. And as you go up, you've still got them there. You're aware of them. You know, it's not, you're not detaching from it. You need to position yourself where you're of the most impact, of the most use, and of the most value to yourself and to the world. And then that's the framework we can have a conversation, because we're not then suddenly showing what the numerical combination on our remote control is to the inside of our head to the rest of the world. So we're just, you know, flying about like crazy about everything and living on a hair trigger. You know, that's not sensible.
It's not sensible. I have one provision that I have made that is a caveat to what you're saying, is for Black people who can't go to the market or send their son to school or be out in public and not know if you're going to come home, because you're going to get shot if you get pulled over. So that is not okay at a human rights level. Yeah. And then one could say, well, where do you draw the line? Why is that a topic and other things are not a topic? Well, I fully understand why Black people are mad. I fully get it. And that's why there's like an understanding everyone has as to, yeah, I don't want to know if my husband or son or daughter or whatever goes out and I don't know if they're going to come back because they're going to get pulled over and be shot. You know, I have so much compassion and understanding. And so that faction, I feel like I understand why they're angry every day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way around that.
There isn't. One of my dearest friends over here, she's just, you know, right in the center of the, you know, she's South African, Australian, and she very recently, actually, this was really shit. Actually, this was really shit. She went on a webcast style event to talk about being a Black woman in the music industry. And she's incredibly articulate. She thinks about what she says very, very carefully. And the thing got Zoom bombed. So, because it was like a seminar, and they hadn't made it private, she was talking and she used the phrase white male. And then at that point, she hears the voice white male. And then suddenly, all of these people start popping into the chat, like profane images, calling her all of the different slurs under the sun, all of this kind of shit. This was like maybe 3 months ago, 4 at a push. And, you know, it's like you're saying there, you can't say to someone who this is the reality that they live in, yeah, well, let's just park that. No, that's not at all what we're suggesting. It's, we need to bring this into the awareness.
Yes.
There's some fascinating literature. A really popular book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, is a fascinating book. My dad was reading it, and my dad has always been like Mr. Equality. And we spoke on the phone, and he was getting into it, and he was basically having this existential crisis because he was like, it's talking about history, the history of Black people and the history of Black exploitation. And he was like, why the hell did I not know any of this stuff? And also, like, with, right, in Scotland and England, Scottish people, we pride ourselves on being this quite tolerant, socially focused, open-minded race, essentially, or nationality, however you want to describe it. Like, slavery is so intertwined into the history of Scotland. We had no idea. We had no idea how deep it went. My dad's middle name is Merchant. you know. And that, I did an ancestry thing back in January, and someone Ballantyne married someone Merchant, and then they double-barreled names for the firstborn for every. I'm the first non-George Merchant Ballantyne for like however many years, 150 years, 200 years or something. And it's that kind of sobering reality for him, someone who's been committed to equality, who's like, oh my God, does that, it hit him in the face like a brick. And I said to him, I was like, all of the work that you've done to foster equality and diversity, do you not think that this is like your sole mission here? Like as in S-O-U-L, not soul
Right.
as in singular. And I know you know that, man. I'm just saying it for the viewers, but he's done so much work that it's as if like his, pre-life choices to come here and to help be someone that, breaks the cycle through discussion. But we aren't taught about any of this stuff. When we get taught about the British Empire in primary school, they say the British Empire, the sun never sets on the British Empire, and we took civilization across the world, blah, 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 blah. British Empire was a terrible thing.
Yes. Yeah,
awful,
we
horrendous.
Early pioneers and settlers, we can really rip them apart in every country.
That's it. That's it. We can say like, look,
Vikings,
product of the time, all of this stuff, things were different, but the conversation now is about how do we bring all this to balance?
Right.
How do we look at our systems that have essentially grown up out of those times? How do we now recalibrate so it reflects the modern world? That's a conversation I'm interested in.
Yeah, just like you would get on a very tall ladder and go to the very top and look around and get a good bird's eye view. I think that's what's necessary in these polarizing conversations. You need to just pull your perspective back, get a very big, wide angle shot of what we're doing. What's really funny though, Alastair, is that people have done that, what I just recommended, but then they kept going into the Galactic Federation and onward, and then they even found ways to polarize that. So, and then it just doesn't end. It's like you have to become an atom. You have to go back to energy, and you're a little atom, and that's the only way you're allowed to be one, or single, or unified, or just observing, apparently. Like, it's almost like peer pressure. There's like so much pressure from others that you're supposed to take aside, and you're supposed to choose one thing or the other. If you don't, you're ignorant. You're ignorant if you don't choose a side.
Yeah.
That's ignorant that you said that. But then I can't say that, because if I say that, then I'm just as bad. So
it's complete crap.
So you just go sing a song, get your guitar out and go sing.
Everyone should own that book, because this talks a lot about visionary art as well. So, Alex Gray, Android Jones, all of these people. There is stuff about 5-MeO-DMT in there as well. But the whole thing is this gives you a complete retrospective of the psychedelic revolution that kind of took off the back end of the 90s. So after it went underground again, it does a little bit of the history and stuff. And then really it spends a lot of things about like, visionary art and culture and the festival culture and what people are doing now. That's what's important. What's happening now. I found so many amazing artists from reading this book. What's going on now? What can you get involved in now? Who can you connect with now? All of this kind of stuff. So this new Psychedelic Revolution is great. Triptamine Palace is a fascinating read if you're interested in transpersonal experiences, heavy philosophy, heavy spirituality, heavy existentialism, and quantum physics, and finding a triangulation between those things. This book does that. This is good, really good.
Well, you guys all heard it here. Once again, thank you, Alastair, for bringing all of your talent and your information, your insights, your heart, your experience to the forefront. You and I both know we can talk for 5 straight hours. It doesn't get old. We could have a cup of coffee, our cosmic coffee, and we we could just talk about everything. There's so many topics. So what our goal is, if you're watching, our goal is for you to take a breath and take a deep, big cleansing breath and just know you're alive on the planet, and start there with your ability to just connect to being who you are, so you can just love being alive. Nevertheless, like not paying attention to anything that's happening around you. Just focus on your existence and focus on being healthy and alive, being out in the sun, eating good food, being pleasant to people around you. Just take care of your square, you know, that little, your little spot that you stand in. Just take care of your spot.
That's
Take
it.
care of your loved ones, you know, be concerned. And so therefore that spreads. And I think that's how we're going to change the world.
I agree 100%. As a newly qualified law of attraction coach, this is exactly how you change your reality. You go right in. Learn what's in there. The heart is your first brain, you know. And you look after yourself, you're looking after each other.
You are, because ultimately that is shared. That is a shared experience, and that gets transferred over. Just like yawning is like contagious. People want to yawn. When you yawn, if you are taking care of yourself and you're around people, they see this and it's contagious. People want to take care of themselves. I probably shouldn't use the word contagious in a pandemic. So I need another word.
I mean, what else could you use? Say, well, it's infectious.
Yes.
Can't use that one either, can we? Oh, it's catching on, you know, like all of the terminology is
Oh
loaded.
my gosh.
So, you know.
Everybody, you guys get what we mean. Please subscribe and like so we can keep on going. And this is really fun. We really love you guys. Please write to us. Please present your comments below. And on Facebook, you can find us. Any questions, reach out to us. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Alastair.
Thank you, Oriah.
We'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
Bye.